Hi, good evening, everybody. It is good to see you all here. I know we are meeting virtually because it's not the best time for us to meet face to face, given the current circumstances. That is mainly why we decided to have this event like this, because the organizing committee decided that YPF Inspire has been part of the life of undergraduates and young professionals for the past 6 years. So if not now for us to have this event, then what is the best time for us to have this event? So for all those people who are new, who has no idea what CILT or YPF means, so basically CILT is a professional body for all the supply chain and logistics professionals around the world. YPF consists of all the young professionals that are part of the supply chain and logistics industry. So on behalf of YPF Sri Lanka, I would like to welcome all of you to YPF Inspire V6. Yeah, before we move on with the event, I have a small request, small message from the organizing committee. That is for all of you to mute your speakers and also switch off your webcam, because we don't want the speakers or your fellow listeners to get distracted because of it. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box. Our organizing committee will pick them up and direct it to the speaker that you want it directed to. And also for all those people who are joining us through Facebook Live, you can do the same. If you have any questions, you can drop those questions in the comment section below, so that our organizing committee can do the same, pick them up and direct them to the speakers. So if you want to direct your questions to a specific speaker, please put his or her name inside the brackets once you type the questions. For an example, you type the question and then within brackets you type either you want to direct it to Shanuki, Charitha, Peter, or even if it's to all three, just type all and close the brackets. Please be mindful that we are on a tight schedule here. So we might not be able to ask all the questions from the speakers, but we will do our best to ask to satisfy all of you guys. So we will do our best to get back to you even after the event if we have time. So moving on, the very first speaker for the evening, who is also our only female speaker for the evening. She has over 21 years of experience when it comes to branding and communication. She's a coach. She's a public speaker. She's very strong, has a very strong presence on social media. You might have heard her, you might have seen her performing, giving public speeches all over the country, all over the world. And also you might have seen her TED Talk as well. So Shanuki De Alwis, over to you, Shanuki.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to start my video. Just to correct him, I haven't spoken all over the world. I was like, whoa, who is this girl? Hi, I'm Shanuki, and I'm going to be your first speaker. So I guess I'm the opening act, and I'm here to talk to you about what's going to happen to us and how we're going to deal with what's going on up here in a post-COVID environment. My speaking style is this, guys. I base everything on my personal experience. I can only refer to what I'm going through to be able to connect with you, and maybe you'll find some truth in what you're going through my experiences. So that's what we're going to do right now. Before we start, I want to do this tiny little exercise with you guys. because I understand it's 6:12 in the evening. Some of you may have had a long day, may have been rushing around since now the curfew is lifted. Some of you might be just, trying to get your minds focused into this space. So if we can take a moment to just breathe, and if you can just breathe the way I ask you to breathe. So this concept of breathing through your stomach. If there's anyone out there who does yoga or meditation, we say, when you breathe, normally we breathe through our lungs, right? Our chest expands. But when you breathe for meditation and yoga, you breathe through your tummy. So you imagine there's a balloon inside your stomach. And when I ask you to, you take, for the count of 4, breathe in and fill that balloon inside your stomach. So if you can do that for the count of 4, so you breathe in, 2, 3, 4. I hope you're doing this with me, and hold that breath. 2, 3, 4. And then let it out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. One more time. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Thank you. What I just taught you was something that we ask people. Okay, so what I do sometimes is I'm a volunteer community crisis responder. And what I've been doing lately in the last 3 months is dealing with a lot of people who are going through panic, anxiety, fear, overwhelming feelings because of what this COVID situation has done to us in our homes, in our work, in our everyday life. And one of this little breathing technique that I shared with you is actually a really tried and tested, really good way of calming down. So, that saying, keep calm and carry on. This is what I just taught you. And this it's a kind of a technique that we start off the process of mindfulness with. It's to bring us back down to earth. It's to calm our systems down. It's to give us clarity and give us a moment to ourselves to just embrace what's going on and to deal. And why I wanted to start off with this was simply because this is what we seem to be needing today, right? What is going on with the world right now? It's changing at the rate of 20 WTFs per minute, the way I see it. You know how in 2012, we were all worried that the Mayans had said the world was going to end. I'm pretty sure the Mayans got like those last 2 digits kind of mixed up. And I'm waiting for some sort of cataclysm to happen by 2021. Because everything that we had held as safe, secure, our sense of security and stability and our sense of assuredness just went out of the window the minute this word pandemic came around and everything shut down. Our lives as we knew it kind of went topsy-turvy. And a lot of us have had to sort of just realign and readjust overnight. We've been forced to reprioritize and reassess what we're all about. And that's been more difficult for some than it has been for others. Personally, I've been in a place of privilege where I didn't necessarily have a daily wage and I didn't lose my daily income, and therefore I could not feed my family. So I feel grateful, but I'm also very conscious that there are so many out there who actually went through that situation. Then there were those of us who were waiting to maybe change careers or get hired by by a company. And, we've just finished our exams and we are looking forward to a new life. And then suddenly the COVID situation happens and then your prospects just completely change overnight because companies just stop hiring. Some of us are struggling because we have immunocompromised people at home. We've suddenly become so much more aware and anxious of this virus bugger running around that, who could attack us any moment and that who we can possibly take it back into our homes and affect elderly people or ill people in our homes. So that keeps us sort of very anxious and very, very aware of our surroundings at all times. It makes us a little OCD about things almost. Some of us are going back into work where things that we may have looked forward to, like for instance, the out of the bonuses, right? Who doesn't like those? Or increments and promotions and, things that you were looking forward to in terms of getting your targets by the end of the quarter. All these things just went for a fix. And then we have another lot of people who, in their homes, the whole situation of being locked inside a house for 3 months with people you may not necessarily be getting along with. That's given rise to issues like domestic violence in the homes. That's created problems with marriages, with, kids and parents are having issues because suddenly we are in each other's faces and we can't get out of it. And this has caused such a massive, massive issue on mental health, not only in Sri Lanka, but around the world. So where are we now? Suddenly overnight, 3 months later, okay, we're going to manage, we're going to open the curfew, lift the curfew, and let you guys out little by little. Wear a mask, wash your hands, but go out there into the world and behave like everything's back to normal. But is it really? It's not at all normal, right? And we're just kind of like wild animals who have been caged for a long time, and then when you're suddenly let out back into the wild, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to think. You're afraid that something will get at you. There are lots of people who are feeling very anxious just to step out of their house again, even though they may have been the wildest party animals before the lockdown happened. Suddenly, we're so sensitized to this issue of the coronavirus pandemic, as well as the fact that our worlds are completely different. There's a new normal going on out there. So what do? How do we handle it? How do we just switch back to who we were when everything about our lives and our ecosystems have changed overnight? And that's what I'm going to talk about. So let me now put it into context as to what happened with me and what I've done in terms of my mental health, and in terms of what I know by working with mental health practitioners in various situations, what I have applied to myself to be able to handle this new normal and this post-COVID environment in my profession as well as in my life. One thing that I had, as I was telling Peter before this event started, was I had a bit of a midlife crisis last year. I turned 40 and I decided, am I really happy with my life? I think I want to change. I want to find myself. I want to find my purpose. I was leading a company. I had a startup that I was running. I was making good money. I had, a good business going. I had nothing really to complain about, but I decided I just wasn't happy. So I decided, okay, in 2020, I'm going to find myself, a new career. I'm going to go into consulting. I'm going to become a trainer. I'm going to, become a speaker. I'm going to motivate the world. I'm going to contribute to causes that matter. The world is my oyster. Here's my resignation. That's what I did to my investors. I handed in my resignation. I said, I'll be leaving in March 2020. Thank you very much. And they accepted that resignation. What happened in March 2020? Coronavirus. And then suddenly every plan that I had was shot to hell. Plans to travel, plans for business, plans to discover myself. I couldn't. I was just stuck in a house not knowing what to do with myself. And now that everything's starting to open up again, I don't have a job. I don't have the stability of a salary. And this, I guess, a lot of people can relate to. Maybe you may not have left your job. Maybe you would have been made redundant. Maybe you would have been laid off. Maybe you would have been put on a furlough scheme. And this can cause a lot of stress and anxiety to someone like me who's like, I need to plan my life 10 years ahead of time. When this kind of thing happens, it can really push you off the edge sometimes. It can cause a lot of depression. It can make you wonder, like, what's going to happen to me? Who's going to support me now? How am I going to support myself? What happens to all my responsibilities? Oh my God, I regret leaving my job. Or maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. So that's something that I've been going through. And I've been forced to prioritize, to assess, to unpack. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And luckily, I have had the privilege of working with some amazing mental health practitioners in the work that I do for mental health advocacy. And I've had access to knowledge that has given me a lot of power over myself. So I'm here to share this knowledge with you. So like I mentioned, some of the things that you will feel and that I know that you can relate to after going out back into this new normal, post-COVID normal, is things like anxiety, like I mentioned before, the stress, the fear of a second wave of the pandemic coming along, that whole overwhelm that you get back into a massive workload after 3 months of working from home and, kind of chilling out in a way. You go back and then suddenly you're overloaded. How do you actually switch on productivity like nothing happened, right? Your brain, what happens is we have this little peanut in our head. The peanut is not the brain. Some people have a peanut-sized brain, but this is actually a nodule called the amygdala. Any psychology students out there would know what I'm talking about. So the amygdala is a little peanut inside your brain that puts out this thing called the stress hormone. And what happens is, in a situation of crisis, in a situation that we have not foreseen and are not prepared for, our amygdala makes us go into the fight or flight response. It's survival. It's a primal instinct. We either fight or we fly. We want escapism. And that causes us to go into this panic and anxiety and all this, the stress, depression kind of thing is all caused by that stress hormone that is secreted by the amygdala. And then we get into this situation of maybe, that comes out as aggression, that comes out as trauma, that comes out as maybe just numbness, detachment, where we're not really dealing with the issue. We're not really understanding and focusing on how to get over that challenge. So we need to understand this is what our brain is doing to us. It's not really something wrong with us. It's a normal human reaction. And it's okay to not be okay at this point of time, given what's going on around the world. A lot of people are feeling the way you feel, right? But once you understand that, then you understand how to manipulate that and get your dopamines and your serotonins and the good hormones, the feel-good hormones come back into your life to help your positivity, right? So this stress and depression and everything you're going through is because of that amygdala, that little peanut telling you, oh my God, the world is going to end. The Mayans were right, and you're going to end with it. So when we kind of have this fight or flight response, our brains go into this scarcity mindset as well, which is what happens if you see people the way they're like overloading and overbuying things at supermarkets. It happened when the curfews were first put out. And now again, when you go back out to buy your groceries, you're again worried. The way you're rationing, the way you're stocking up and stuff, you're worried about, what's going to happen. So that is your survival mechanism. That is your scarcity mindset taking place. So you need to be aware of your behaviors when you do that. When you go back to work, this feeling of, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle it. My mind is just not focusing anymore. This unproductivity is something that we can really easily kind of manage and realign. So one of the things that I have done with my life is this thing called a game plan. It is the concept of goal setting. If you work with a personal development coach, or maybe you can read up about it online, there's plenty of material out there. Goal setting helps you to force yourself to see a game plan in your immediate future, to give yourself a reason to wake up the next day, to give yourself something to look forward to. Because for 3 months, we haven't really known what tomorrow is going to bring. And that's caused this kind of sense of either detachment or either just helplessness. And that is a learned helplessness that we go through as people. And when we feel helpless, we've decided, okay, nothing good is going to happen. Nothing good is going to happen to me, and I can't handle this. And then we want to, opt out. So that's when the whole idea of a goal or a game plan helps. So what I would say is, for the next 3 months, make a game plan for yourself. That's what I've done. I'm not decided for the rest of 2020 because I thought that's no point. If that virus comes back, I don't know what to do. But I do have control over the next 3 months of what I do with myself, right? And for the next 3 months, you give yourself a goal. And a goal needs to be SMART. Any of you have done marketing, you all know about this. SMART is, it's got to be specific, it's got to be measurable, it's got to be achievable, it's got to be relevant, and you've got to put a time limit on it. So you create goals for yourself. And then once you look at that goal, okay, this is what I want to achieve, either with my work or with my personal life, then you break that goal down even further into small tiny achievable tasks. So you've got a 3-month goal, then you break it down to saying, okay, where am I now in comparison to that end goal that I have in 3 months? What's this gap I need to close? So what do I need to do every day or every week or every month to be able to get there? So what you do is you consciously break it down to more realistic, more practical, more doable tasks, which means you give yourself a daily plan. You give yourself a daily calendar. And once you give yourself a calendar, and this can be completely personal to you. It can be, today I'm going to find 5 things that I like about myself, or I'm going to look for 3 things that make me happy today at the end of the day. These things actually start training your brain to be a little more positive in a situation that's not so positive, right? You're giving yourself tasks and you're giving yourself a reason to focus on something and be productive about something. So for me, it's been, because I don't have a job right now and I'm pretty much working for myself, my goals have been, my short-term daily goals have been, every morning I give myself a reason to be grateful. I tell myself, I am grateful for something. This is my gratitude for the day. That's how I start my morning off. So I'm resetting my mind when I get up. I'm like, oh, you are a sucky day today. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to set that negativity, make that my benchmark for the day. I'm going to get up and think to myself, okay, what am I grateful for today? And then every night I go to bed with the goal of thinking of one thing that made me really happy. So what I've done is I've given myself something to look forward to, and I've given myself something good to look back on. And that's kind of really helped me shift from a person who is susceptible to clinical depression and anxiety, which I am. It's really helped me deal a lot better than people who I thought were stronger than me, who had a better mentality and a better control over their lives than me, who are not able to deal with this new normal. I've been actually able to do that simply because I've told myself, these are my goals, these are my tasks. In this, I'm going to achieve these things. And then what I've done is I've created this little thing called a vision board. So a vision board, because I'm someone who likes to visualize what my future needs to be able to believe in it more. And when you believe in something, you can transform your life, you can manifest it. So what I've done is I've given myself pictures to look forward to. I've visualized my goals, whether it's some form of income that I want. So I put a picture of money there. If I want to travel, I put the country I want to travel to, what I want to do with myself. If I want to speak somewhere, I've doodled myself speaking somewhere. And I've got pictures of positivity that I look at and envision. And it sounds really kiddish, guys, but it works. So I've got this positive mentality that I'm kind of forcing onto myself. And I'm able to work through and get my mental resilience up. So mental resilience is something that even, the world's best super soldiers are trained to do, is to be resilient in the face of adversity. And this is actually stuff that they do. I mean, as childish as it sounds, this is what they do in America with, a Navy SEALs training. They give themselves gratitude and goal setting and positivity and vision boards. And you really visualize the kind of ideal situation that you'd rather be in, so you're focusing on what's positive than what's negative. And then when you go back to work, give yourselves time. Give yourselves time to reassess your work. Give yourselves time to have those conversations with your management. Find out, compete with yourself, challenge yourself. Like, find out what can you do to improve this time that you weren't so good in, like, before COVID. What can you do to prove that you've changed over this curfew to do so much better? Have conversations with your management. Find out if there's some new task that you can take on, some new challenge you can overcome. Again, these are goals that you're giving yourself. These are things that you are giving yourself a reason to look forward to the work that you have to do. And give yourselves time to adjust to it. I think one of the biggest problems we have is we beat ourselves up saying, oh my God, I'm not getting this right. I can't focus. This is not right. That is not right. We're so kind of hell-bent on telling ourselves everything's gone wrong. But we do have control over ourselves and our minds and our amygdalas, and we can actually shift that and, tell ourselves, no, it's okay. It's okay that I'm anxious right now. It's okay that I'm fearful. But let me just chill and see what I can do to look at it positively and control how I take on this challenge and control how I behave towards this. So there are things you can't control in life, which is what is the government doing with this situation? What is your company going to decide? What is your family going to do? You can't decide on any of that, and neither can you control it. But you can control how you respond and how you react to that. And every time you respond positively, treat yourself, celebrate yourself, feel good about the fact that you handled this task well. No matter how small, you handled it well. That motivates you to keep handling things well. And then before you know it, a week's gone by, a month's gone by, 3 months have gone by, and you've been okay. You've actually gotten through this new normal. I don't have much time. There's a lot more to talk about, but I'm going to stop right now because my 20 minutes are up. Thank you for listening. And if anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you, Shanuki. I think what she said is extremely useful because, don't mind me saying, the things that we didn't do back in the day are now considered to be the new normal. So it is very necessary for us to have a straight mind and be prepared starting from mentally to face these challenges up front. So the questions will be directed to you, Shanuki, after Charitha and Peter are done talking as well. So moving towards the second speaker for the evening, he is the head of group sustainability at Dialogue XCR PLC. He's also a friend of mine and a very respected mentor of mine as well. He's a former president scout. He's into agriculture, environment, all those things, and he's personally responsible for bringing in a lot of environmental grants into Sri Lanka in order to uplift the standards of agriculture and here in Sri Lanka. So Mr. Charitha Ratwattee will be talking to you about how, if you're an undergraduate or a young professional, how you should be prepared with the future job market, because as Shanuki mentioned, the companies are taking drastic decisions when it comes to employment. So Charitha, it's over to you to explain what you have.
Okay, so thank you, organizers, for asking me to be part of this with these other excellent presenters on this evening, especially the organizers such as Oshad, Asheni, and the others. I'll go through the names. I'm terrible with names, sorry about that. Before we get started, I just want to see kind of who's in the virtual room and get an idea of what might help me make this conversation a little more meaningful to you. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open the poll at this address. I hope everyone can see it. So the questions are what are on the screen right now. Let me switch to the screen with the polls. Okay, do you see the questions, guys? So three very simple questions. You see the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the questions are over there.
So first one, do you know what you want to be when you grow up? For me, I haven't grown up yet. I may have an idea. Let's see what Peter has to say. And Shanuki is definitely working on the next chapter. So that's also, I think, something that will be very...
Yeah, Charitha, for the participants to take part, do they have to, they just have to scan the URL code or?
Yeah, scan the QR code or go to this URL, or let me actually copy it to the chat. Okay, so somebody has been able to log in. Let me just find the... So the website is slido.com and the code is 39742. So we've had 13 people responding so far. Okay, sorry, I had typed that only to the organizers. Okay, in the interest of time, let me move on, but clearly lots of people are saying they either have no idea or they're trying to narrow it down. But interestingly, a fair amount are also saying they do, 22%, about a fifth are saying they actually do have a good idea. So that's good. I'm going to move on to the next question. Did you lose my screen or can you see it?
We can see the screen actually, yeah.
Okay. So this one, just type in whatever your last, most recent qualification, whatever you studied or passed, and we'll get a word cloud. No surprise, we have supply chain people, lots of diplomas, engineers, bachelors of science, MBAs. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to move on again. We have 18 answers so far. Let's just wait for maybe, okay, we hit 20. So lots of undergrad and diploma holders. Final question. Hope you can see it. Excellent. So this is good. Everybody has a very clear answer. Some people have decided, I tried that, maybe I'll try something else now. Okay, we have 22 answers, so I'm not gonna take any more time about this. Thanks everyone for the participation. Let me now switch screens again. Okay, so again, thank you to the organizers for inviting me, and particularly Asheni, Anjana, Oshad, Pasindu, Sashen, and everybody else. Thank you very much, Shanuki, for what you were talking about, particularly for addressing the issues about mental health that are particularly important in situations where humans are social creatures. So in the isolation that people have been experiencing for a while. I'll run through these slides very fast. I'm happy to take any questions or online or offline, give you some other things as well. So basically the team told me to kind of give some insight into my journey so that it's just one of many billions of different approaches people could take. And I'll also talk a little bit about the future of work. And also everybody's been hearing about Industrial Revolution 4, but are we a little further on beyond that since March or April if you are Sri Lankan? So this is not probably his most well-known statue, but the people are wearing clothes in this one, so I thought I'd show this one. I don't know how many people might recognize this statue. The person who produced this and others said he could visualize a block of marble and see the shape inside that he wanted to chip the rest of the stone away from. So visualizing, as Shanuki also talked about, what your end goal is going to be is something that this gentleman was able to do. If you can't guess, if you've never seen this face, you might know this face. So maybe in the chat, you guys can take a guess at the name of the Renaissance artist. He did all kinds of things. So yes, it was Michelangelo. This is how I will go through the rest of these slides. So first of all, I'm not going to stick for long on these slides, but a long time ago, someone wanted me to talk about careers, and being a recovering engineer, I came up with a flow chart. So I mean, I found that most of it actually, it still holds true, I guess, most of it. Right, so I'll zoom in for a second on the stuff apart from studies, which, I mean, there are always options, other options that you can take, but you'll also be thinking about different steps that sometimes you can go through several times and at different stages of your life. So from what I understand, most of you are working or just starting to work or undergrads. So you may be just past this stage, but you have your diplomas and you have your MBAs. So sorry, we discussed the results already, so I'm not going to sit there. So very quickly about me. Yeah, I did go to school. I generally did a lot of other things. That's me with my good buddy. We were lucky enough to go abroad to play water polo. These are some of my good friends from informatics, where I did my undergrad. Yes, that's outside the building. Yes, that's also outside the building. We did spend time in class, and we did graduate, but we had a lot of fun along the way. Still in touch with them. We're actually having a call tomorrow. People scattered all over the world, but all stuck at home. Then I started working at this place called Millennium IT. I actually started working there 2 weeks before they moved to the new campus in Malabar. So my boss told me that I was hired because they needed somebody to carry all the boxes. And when I got there, this extremely charismatic, engaging young gentleman by the name of Peter De Almeida did the induction for us. So I still remember his opening and how he talked. I still remember the things he talked about, the SLT backhaul and all those things. Peter, you must be remembering. So yeah, I mean, again, a lot of fun. No, that's not cocaine. That's flour. So this is Aurudu celebrations. My good friend Gihan. Yes, I did do work there too. I was lucky enough to go to Africa a few times, automating stock exchanges in the then emerging markets. Of course, while we were there, we also played cricket with the local Sri Lankans. Then I had the opportunity to go do my MBA at this beautiful campus, which is called the Peradeniya of the Western Hemisphere. So it is in California, Stanford University. So they actually, a lot of people draw a lot of comparisons to Peradeniya and between Peradeniya and Stanford. Yes, I had fun there too. This is our club team. I can't remember why, but I wasn't playing that day. But I also did my internships in, this is Kyrgyzstan. You know, this lady kept saying, grandfather Lenin, grandfather Lenin. Lenin, you know, great conversations we were having. They only knew where I was from because of tea. That's the only reason they even had heard of my country. But I got to this village, and this lady and her husband run a bakery, and their son is married to a Sri Lankan from Beruala. This is Kyrgyzstan, by the way. I hadn't even heard of the name of the country before I went there. So it's amazing, you get Sri Lankans everywhere. And yes, they made me dance. And then we went to India for an exchange program, and they made us dance, learning the Bhangra. Trying anyway. But I managed to graduate. It was hard, let me tell you. It was really hard. Then I came back to Sri Lanka, having proposed to set up a non-profit organization that was part of the terms of the program under which I pitched, to work with smallholder paddy farmers and help them improve their conditions. And so you've probably heard a lot of speakers and a lot of people talking about being, you know, setting up multiple organizations and getting all those things done as serial entrepreneurs. I was actually a serial entrepreneur, different serial. But yeah, I had a lot of fun running around in paddy fields full-time for about 3.5 years, talking to different farmers from different parts of the country. Then, so like I said, I'm a recovering software engineer. So I got kind of hired to Dialogue. I refused at first, saying my startup was too young, and I didn't want to kind of leave it at a tricky stage. But they insisted, and they made some very generous concessions. So I'm in this terrible situation where I have 2 jobs that I love, which makes time management and prioritization really hard. But we get to do all kinds of cool stuff because I had, like Oshad said, sustainability and a Dialogue. That means a lot of things, particularly applying our technologies and capabilities for digital inclusion and to kind of help improve different key areas in the country that we see the need to and opportunity to support in. So we do a lot of work around agriculture. Education is actually our biggest investment. You might have seen some of it. We recently launched just over a year ago an app called Yeheli in Sinhala and English and Tholi in Tamil. It's an app and a website where people can ask completely anonymous questions that are answered by experts from all kinds of different specializations. So you ask your question. If you don't already find a similar answer in the model questions and answers, which you can do anytime, if you ask a question, a moderator looks at it and directs it to people with either legal, medical, counseling, kinds of backgrounds. And we also have tied up with the Facebook Hitavati program for cyber bullying and other campaigns. And one of the things, coolest and newest things, again, look, the stuff I do is really low tech because the people I work with are using just good enough affordable technologies, and that's fine. So we meet them where they are. So this, we just launched in April, just before, was it April? No, yeah, just in March, just before the lockdown got serious. And what happened was, fishermen didn't know that the curfew applied to going out to sea as well. All we were doing initially was early warnings for serious weather conditions. But we had the channel, obviously, where we just sent out recordings in whatever their languages and for whatever region that they were registered for, telling them about those dangers. And of course, with the recent heavy weather, it's been very important. We do lots of things working with different parts of government. You can't work around or in spite of government in these big areas. It's often, I always say my work with stakeholders is the most character building part of the process. Let me just see how we are for time. Okay, I have 6 minutes roughly. So that's one story. That's one journey. But each of yours will be different. So I just want to very quickly tell you about another journey. This is a friend of mine called Sajid, good friend of mine, my best man. And he's this guy who, amazing sportsman, went to the US very early, very young, did his undergrad, had a whole lot of fun doing it, played basketball, did everything there, and became an engineer, became an aerospace engineer. And I was like, you idiot, what are you going to do? Because I was, and still am, big on people studying abroad. That's fine, but please come back and please give something back to this country, especially if you were supported by a lot of taxpayer money, right? So I was like, you idiot, what are you doing? You're never going to find a way to get back to Sri Lanka. So that was okay, because I mean, he was working on things like bearings for the Apache helicopter and all kinds of cool things like that. But then he moved to Singapore, so that's closer than America. Had a lot of fun there, working in similar things. His parents were getting old, getting a little ill. It's not like the US was doing great the last few years. But the thing is, basically, his specialization was space age polymers, right? And polymers are in everything. And also, as an aerospace engineer, basically, he worked on flight and wings. Well, sails are also wings. So first he came back to Sri Lanka and worked on a company exporting lightweight boats, masks. Then he moved to a company doing sales. And suddenly now he was back in Sri Lanka doing very relevant work to his experience and qualifications. In fact, then he moved on to a company doing boats and found that they were using about 10 times as much fiber as they needed to in their boats, and so helped them get a lot of efficiencies. All in Sri Lanka, by the way, companies exporting boats all over the world. And right now he's working on interiors for, these are Gulfstream and other small and medium passenger planes and private planes. So that's another journey. I just want you to see, he did come back to Sri Lanka. You don't have to come back to Sri Lanka. I do like if you can give back to Sri Lanka. But now I'm going to switch very quickly and talk about what I'm calling Industrial Revolution 4.5. Because everybody, the last 1 year has been going on and on and on. You must be sick of it talking about IR4, about how, all these new technologies are converging and going to change the way things happen. And you talk about how, since about 1950, the rate of change in so many things has been accelerating, good and bad, including greenhouse gas emissions and everything else, talking about the increasing power of, the supercomputers that you have in your pocket, way more powerful than what took astronauts to the moon, or even the Cray supercomputers of 20 years ago. But also you start seeing in Sri Lanka now, other trends that you might want to keep your eyes on. So one is aging. Now, aging is affected by several things. It's affected by people living longer and not dying. It's also affected by lower birth rates. It's also, so there are a lot of contributing factors to aging, but the average age of the population is going up. That's not a bad thing. However, it does also include the fact that people are still retiring at 55 and spending easily another 25 years, depending, if they're pensioners, depending on their very usually small pensions or on other sources of income or support. And Sri Lanka is not even yet at what I'm calling peak human. Population is going to peak only in a few years, about 2037, I think. So there's going to be more of us before there are less of us. And that's a problem from a lot of different points of view. But it's going to mean that there are a lot of people competing for the possibly dwindling number of jobs, particularly high quality jobs. So that's something you'll need to think about. So, all these people are talking, and this is before even the pandemic hit too deeply, but people are talking about how it's going to be so tough for people to find jobs, to keep people qualified in your companies because they'll see so many other opportunities. And then this happened. And how does that change things? So I won't spend a lot more time. I actually posted a LinkedIn article because you guys asked me to think about this, and I took way more time than I expected on doing it. So I thought I might as well just post it as an article on LinkedIn. But these are some of the things that I thought about. So time-wise, I don't want to take a lot more. So we can come back to these. Otherwise, by all means, please just look at it. But basically, internal labor flows in Sri Lanka are a big thing, and you saw how all that got screwed up by lockdown. So it's not only about international immigration and immigration. How is working from home going to work for people? What's going to happen to joblessness and new job opportunities when automation accelerates? Everybody talked about doing it, but now they actually had to do it. Impacts on transport, what they're calling the Uberization of everything. Companies like ours was trying to Uberize things anyway, but now everything is getting Uberized, including people having to manage themselves and be service providers, which can be a very good thing, but which can also get very tricky. And the nice thing is many companies have been doing this, but now everybody has to do this. You can't travel, but that doesn't mean you can't be a global organization with a global footprint. So just some qualities and skills that I think you need to make sure you are working on. So some qualities of your own And when I say entrepreneurialism, I also mean intrapreneurialism, as they say. Not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can afford to take the risks of being an entrepreneur at certain points in their lives. But there's a lot you can do, as I feel I'm doing in my own job at Dialogue, to shake up things internally. Entrepreneurialism also means risk-taking, a level of risk tolerance, calculated risks, not crazy things, but where you have to be comfortable with a certain level of not knowing all the answers immediately, but testing out a few things and going. So that's also why we say the scientific method. Basically, you need to be willing to take calculated and planned experiments and keep testing. Always be testing, as I say at Google. Storytelling is also important. Shanuki, I think, was a great example of that, so I'm not going to talk about it. This is from 2013. You guys, if you know about Counter-Strike or Half-Life or other such games, you know about Valve software. So this is from their actual, at the time, paper employee manual. And I think this is one of the characters from their games. And they were saying, we need T-shaped people. You might have heard this before, people saying you need to have a breadth of different capabilities and experience and insight into different areas of things. You don't need to be super kind of deeply experienced in them, but you also need to have depth somewhere in some important area. So there is an example of that particular character. So a generalist, but also able to go deep in some areas. But then now they're talking about key-shaped people, because that looks like an old-fashioned key. I don't know whether you've even seen it. So no, you can't only be deep in one area. You need to be pretty good in a few others as well. Also still have a very broad view, and that's a danger with our UK-based or Sri Lankan refined higher education system. You can go very deep and lose sight of everything else. So that's something you have to make sure you're not getting stuck in. There are people talking about X-shaped and other shaped as well. You can go see. But basically, the main thing is, if you're not taking risks, you're not learning. And it's only when you're taking risks and when you're doing things that you're not fully comfortable doing, that you will be at your most creative and productive. So remember that. Don't just stick in what's easy and what everybody else is doing. You won't improve and you won't enjoy it. People would have heard of the concept of Ikigai, which is apparently a Japanese concept. That too, interestingly, people have refined. So you find something that you enjoy doing, otherwise you'll hate your life. Try to make it something that pays well. But also, you're again not going to enjoy it if it's not something you're particularly good at and you're not going to go far. But now people are talking about also doing something that the world needs. There are certain jobs that the world may not necessarily need, even though you might have to be brilliant to do them, or you might be really skilled at them. You might need to think about what you're contributing to the world and the future as well. Just an example that my wife showed me and that I was thinking people should be doing already, and that has started, it seems, during the lockdown. Ladies will probably relate better, but so this is basically a personal care service that it seems is pretty hard for people to manage on their own. So they have to go to salons regularly. Doesn't work in lockdown. So they're bringing the salon to you. Not all the services of a salon might work, but this does. So, and they're an Instagram business. They're just on Instagram. They don't have any other need of channel. You contact them, they come to you. So, these are the kinds of things that people are pivoting to. There are a few other great things that friends of Oshad's and others are doing that I'm really impressed by and cheering on, because it's all part of improving the economy. But I mean, you may take some people may not agree with me, but this is from a few years ago. You're probably going to see some of this again. Maybe not, but don't be these guys. Right. So, I mean, you should focus on improving yourself and helping the world through whatever you are doing. There may have been some very stupid decisions or whatever in this particular instance about how they were going about it, but it would have created more doctors that in many specializations we badly need in this country and that the world needs. who might have been working by now and helping our corona-infected people if this hadn't happened about 7 years ago. So try not to be these guys, please. That's it. You can look me up on LinkedIn, and I would suggest, lots of people send me friend requests on Facebook, but I mean, that's okay. I'm not going to accept it on Facebook unless I know you and I've actually met you. But on LinkedIn, yes, because that's a place where we are happy to help people who are trying to make contacts, build a network, improve their visibility into the things that are going around them. I might have taken a little extra time. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much. I'm glad I went before Peter because I'm sure he's going to blow us all out of the water. But thank you, and look forward to the questions later.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you, Charitha, for that amazing talk. Of course, yes, I think to summarize everything, what we need to understand is what you learn in the university doesn't actually matter. It all leads to what you can do and all the risks that you can take and what you can actually give back to the society as a Sri Lankan as well. So moving forward to our final speaker for the evening, he's probably the most loved Prime Minister of all time. Doesn't matter fictional or not. So he's a founder, he's an entrepreneur himself. He's a very techie guy and also a great actor. So Peter de Almeida will talk to you about how technology will influence our life moving forward post the coronavirus pandemic. So Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Oshad. Firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to your Inspire V6. It's a pleasure to be with so many young people and to share some ideas. Shanuki, thank you very much for that exercise. I just did a little bit of that before I came on, so that was very helpful. And Charitha, I was also a Boy Scout. So we are kindred spirits, apart from being colleagues at Millennium. Unfortunately, I stopped with the second class badge. You went on to become a President Scout, so well done. So coming to my topic, I'll try to stick to 15 minutes. I'll try to save a little time for Q&A. So you see, the thing is, your industry, the logistics industry or the supply chain and transportation industry was already going through a lot of changes even before COVID. And these changes were very much technology driven. You see, led by the disruption of the entire industry, the way the business model and all of that, by the large behemoths like Amazon and Alibaba, people were already getting their head around, highly automated warehouses, digital, knowledge, good data about their customers, good visibility of their entire operations. All of that was the need of the day. But, like most companies in Sri Lanka, like the companies that are doing well, the change was so lethargic. There was no energy, there was no urgency. They thought, what the hell, we are making some money now. All these changes are not going to, we shouldn't invest in all these technologies or relook at our business model. We'll be okay because we are making money and that'll be fine. But then COVID came. And as we all know, the global distribution has been disrupted at a scale that I don't think we have seen in living memory. So that started raising very serious questions about the business model and the operations of logistics and supply chain companies. For example, the conventional wisdom, the best practice that everyone aspired to be, this whole idea of just-in-time inventory, seemed like a really dumb idea because there was demand and they couldn't fulfill it. It's ridiculous that there was such a, terrible, overwhelming demand for toilet paper, and the very idea that people are rushing around and filling their carts with it and fighting shows us a little bit about what humanity or some parts of mankind has turned to be utterly selfish and, not sharing with the community, but that's a topic for another discussion. But you see, everyone wanted to do just in time, and they found, my God, we can't fill the stores with supply. So that was one. Yeah. So, this single source. So China, they said, my God, now we are a double whammy because we don't have markets in Europe And even to supply to those markets, our suppliers from China are not giving us our raw material. So, this whole notion of leveraging on economies of scale to keep your costs down seemed like a bit of a silly idea. And finally, companies and retailers, particularly our supermarkets, who were focusing on building large supermarkets with even larger car parks, suddenly looked damn stupid because both their supermarkets and their car parks were empty of customers. So, and they had no connection with their consumer. They lost that critical last mile because they expected the last mile is where the consumer walks into your supermarket and buys your product. And the moment they couldn't, they had no way of connecting. There was a massive demand, but cannot supply because I just don't know how I'm going to get that damn last mile going. So, if you think all this made customers look foolish, what really makes them look utterly stupid was the fact that they had no data about their consumers. Now I'll take the example of supermarkets, people buy their stuff and this example of this particular supermarket. I'll come to that in a minute. Exactly what they buy, the quantities they buy, when they buy, where they buy it from, and you didn't have it. So that is why one of the large supermarkets, who also has a loyalty card, they could have known exactly what was needed by whom, but they never bothered to invest in getting that data available more meaningfully. And as a result, when they tried to get customers to register online, which they should have done years ago, there was a massive backlash, and customers are very strident in their comments on social media and all that, saying, what the hell, man, you guys can't even get this damn registration right, because they had to get queue, and they had to get up at 5 o'clock to queue up to register for supplies. How stupid is that? And these are very large companies. So this whole idea of, none of these changes in the world will affect us is what caught them napping. So I think now is the time to really completely relook at your business model, the way you operate, and to reboot your business, as even Accenture has recommended. But now I am not that hopeful, because you see, our CEOs, most of us, not all of them, particularly those in large companies, don't seem to think that, a change is necessary. So they will make some incremental changes, but they will not make the kind of transformation you need when you've got this experience. And this is not the last virus that's going to attack us, you can be damn sure, because we are messing up our biodiversity to such an extent that, the viruses and the bacteria will find a way to get back, and come to bite our backs. But leave that aside. What should we do? I think leverage technology. Firstly, use data, get visibility from your consumer all the way up to your raw material source, your production, get good visibility. Then at least the numbers, you can plan it better. Secondly, look at your supply supplier strategy. I just spoke about, single source, single country, very dangerous because there is climatic change, there is political upheavals. Now you saw what happened in United States and all these other places. If there is mass protests against the kind of oppression that people are facing, your suppliers will not be able to get their shops into your materials onto ships and planes to send them across to you. So single supplier source is a matter that you want to look at, because it's highly risky. And you might want to start looking at suppliers closer home, regional. And I say, please start looking what can be homegrown. Now, I don't say everything can be homegrown. That's stupid. But start looking. And that is why, Charitha, you spoke about this, in your last slide or the one before. Community-centered suppliers, I'll come to that in a minute. And also reduce your touch point, between your source, your production, and the consumer. Because the less touch points you have, the more value you can create to each of the suppliers and have a much better way of integrating all of this more meaningfully. And the one before the last point, collaborate. Don't try to do it yourself. We saw what happened. Quickly, companies started using Uber who were not on Uber. Who these big restaurants who thought, I'm not going to be an Uber provider. I'm a top-class restaurant. People come here for a dining experience. Quickly, they found, my God, nobody's buying my, black pork curry or whatever you want to call it, or my chocolate cake or whatever the desserts. So they had to, look at a different model. So, and they quickly collaborated with the Ubers, with all kinds of last mile supply, including some people, three-wheeler drivers, from the community. And that worked very well. So we could buy fish and all that right at our doorstep. But the point I think they should really focus on is this idea of being community-centered. I mean, if we just go back and try to do it all ourselves at a massive multinational scale, there's no chance. I mean, take a supermarket. They can start working with the three-wheeler drivers who have served them well and say, okay, guys, how many of you are there? Okay, let me know, 50, 60, 70. Okay, now we have got an app and we want to deliver. Now we don't want to buy our own big trucks and all that. We want to share this with you. You're part of our community because, we have opened a supermarket in Katagas, Digili or whatever. And, we want you to be part of this. And then you ask the community to grow some vegetables for us, make some of our produce, grind mustard, give us cinnamon, whatever. Now you can't buy cinnamon, damn it. It's not available. So, try to see whether you can create a new model, which is the only way we can sustain humanity and the planet, So that's something that I would think that, we can relook at the very way in which we conduct business, which is community-centered. I think I started at 7:07, so that's about, I'll try to finish now. But the point is, like I said, I'm not very hopeful because, you see, we have a crisis of leadership. This was not so much a health crisis. Yes, it was health-related, but where things really fell apart is when the politicians and governments thought they know better than the health workers and the health caregivers and the health, I wouldn't call it a business, the health sector. And, they started making decisions with their own personal and political interests at heart. And as a result, that's why so many lives were lost all over the world. But fortunately, some sanity prevailed in Sri Lanka. There was attempts to, run the show. I remember some minister saying, a particular day in April, all infection will be over. They said it. But, some sanity prevailed and the health sector took charge and they were able to, hold this together despite the fact that at the recent funeral of the late Tondaman and I don't want to say anything about the dead, that whole complete breakdown. So coming back, what kind of leadership do you need at a time like this? I think you need leaders who need to inspire you, show you the way, not who will come and say, I say now, please, we have to make profits, cut costs, throw people out of jobs, panic reaction. No, we need leaders who are inspiring, can show you the way and say, you know what, we are all together, we are here, we have survived. Can we all put our heads together and see how we can turn this around? Caring, compassionate leadership is what we need. Look at our communities, they're devastated, aren't they? Don't we care about them? Is shareholder interest only our concern and profits? What about this whole idea that we spoke about stakeholder interest and employees were one of the stakeholders? Look at companies shamelessly, running to the labor department, some even not. First thing, cut jobs, cut salary, cut perks, cut benefits. I mean, these people also have families. They're educating their children. They're caring for their elderly, their mothers, their fathers, their grandchildren. I mean, how heartless and cruel is this? Is that the kind of leadership? You would ask your own companies whether that's the kind of leadership they're providing, in which case, you should look for a better place to work for. So I think I'll leave it at that. And just leave you with one question, thinking, Charitha put up this slide about, what is, the qualifications and all of that. Well and good. And you are in this chartered institute, do your exams. But the question you need to ask yourself, what is all this for? Is it to get a better job, better, a better position, accumulate more wealth, have a few cars, some land, some property, some houses for you, houses for your children? Or are you going to say, you know what, I've been more fortunate some others, and I am going to give my mind to some of the massive challenges faced by humanity and the planet, and I'm going to give my mind to at least one of them. And only then you feel a certain self-worth and a certain value in your life. And Charit, to your point about, what do you want to be when you grow up? In addition to that, I think the interesting question you must ask yourself is that that's a little narrow, because you might say, I want to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, although Charit didn't do that. He found himself doing all kinds of things. But the question, I think, interesting question to ask is, what problems will I be solving when I grow up? That opens up a whole new possibilities and a different way of enriching and looking at your life. So I'll end with that, and I urge you to use this pandemic as a moment to reconnect with society and have a consciousness that it's not all about you. I have your back, you have mine. And as a community, we have to find a way to save our people and also our planet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Peter. And I think as supply chain professionals, we can do a lot about this as well, because more than anyone else, supply chain professionals in this industry understand supply chain and logistics. So you don't have to have another separate course or whatever it is to study about what needs to be done in order to improve the way of living of the citizens in this country, and then moving forward into the other regions as well. So yeah, moving towards the Q&A session, because we are a bit tight on time as well. Ashini will take over and direct the questions that have been submitted to the speakers. So Ashini, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rashad. Yeah, so we have quite a number of questions from our viewers. The first question will be going out to Mr. Peter. Are you there, Mr. Peter?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So most companies are taking steps to terminate employees because they are facing financial losses. What do you think of this? And are there better options that can be implemented by leaders instead of terminating employees?
Of course. The short answer is of course. Of course. I mean, all you have to do is to recalibrate. No, you will lower your expectations. You tell your shareholders, dude, our business is built on stakeholders. I'll keep the answer short so that the others have a chance to have their questions. Okay. So my point is, lower the expectations. Tell your shareholders, you're only one stakeholder, but our employees are also our big stakeholders. And our job, if you're a responsible company in this day and age, we want to protect them. My mother protected 14 of us when my father died with no income. She didn't think of throwing anyone out of the house. So, we tightened our belts, sacrificed. Some of my brothers and sisters went to work without higher studies, and we all survived because that was never an option. So lower the expectation, lower shareholder expectation, and say, you know what, let's pull through this. And, have a bad year, lower our profits, and then think of long-term sustainability, not only of our business, but of our people.
Okay, so the next question is directed to Mr. Charitha. Mr. Charitha, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so you were talking about your life journey, and so will this life journey change for the new generation after COVID? So like you mentioned about sports and physical interaction, which brings the society more closer to people. So will this situation part the society and reduce the emotional side of people?
Yes, so that's actually the trillion-dollar question, I guess, that all the experts from different points of view are grappling with at the moment. What the futurists and the philosophers and everybody actually are thinking about right now is how is that going to be sustained and made human, as it were. So obviously organizations like Dialogue and Enable and others, are able to provide world-class connectivity and all the tools to be able to work in isolation, but then we'll all end up like the Unabomber, right? The guy who was alone in a wood cabin typing out manifestos. So definitely the sense of connectedness doesn't just come through a screen, and people are working on how to do that. So some examples are, even I'm sure your organizations have also been doing this, just, some of our video calls, you exchange pleasantries and things when you come to a meeting or whatever, that happens anyway. But some of our video calls now are specifically just to have the team decompress and kick back and have a little fun. I know some of the younger members of my team are really finding it hard to be so cut off from everyone, and very upset that our foosball table in our area is unused. So people are threatening to go take it home. Well, I don't want to play with. So you need it. Humans need that social interaction. So that is one of the things we most need to work on. But not everything again works without some physical interaction. So those are the things we need to optimize the most. So there will be jobs anyway. The world was moving towards more service sector, service oriented jobs than manufacturing and heavy industries kinds of jobs, which is good because people don't have to be kind of involved in blue collar jobs if they have sufficient qualifications and knowledge and skills to be able to work in service sector jobs. And there are sufficient service sector jobs to keep them busy and involved and paid. So now all the big supermarkets anyway were grumbling about the high turnover among the young ladies and gentlemen at their checkout counters. They have to keep, there's a massive kind of revolving door in those parts of their businesses. Similarly, service businesses like Dialogue have massive churn, as we call it, in the front line, where customers desperately want to see a face, talk to someone and feel that they were able to. Sometimes it's just vent, which is not pleasant for the person, but something that actually helps the customer in some way as well. Me, I much prefer to send an email and get it at whatever point, as long as I know that somebody's going to work on it. But that doesn't work for everyone. So you need to have certain basic skills that people didn't need to have before. It is our responsibility, if we want to keep society together, to make sure everybody has and is able to engage. And if there are people who, for whatever reason, don't want to engage or cannot engage, we still need to do something about them. So there are great examples of, particularly in the US, even in Sri Lanka, this used to happen, school lunch programs. Because a lot of kids, sadly, get a decent meal only when they come to school. So that one meal of the day is very important to their development. Well, schools were shut down. Teachers, principals, and organizations that prepared those meals started taking them to children's homes. Right? Then, people are having to, even in Sri Lanka, people are trying to figure out how do we get devices to people who cannot afford them themselves. And it's tough, especially if you have 14 children or 3 children or 2 children compared to one child who you might be able to struggle and somehow give at least your work laptop or something. How do you ask somebody to lend you 2 laptops or 3 laptops? So these are big problems that I don't think we have perfect answers for yet, but I'm happy to see there are interesting solutions coming forward for it. And at the end of the day, logistics as an industry is crucial, absolutely crucial at the front end, both in and out, and in all the processing at the back end. So you guys are in a very, very important sector for this.
Right. Okay. So we have another question to Shanuki. Working from home or remotely can be very challenging and isolating. So how can we prepare ourselves to adapt to this new normal and structure our day to utilize time to balance work with personal life?
Okay. So I'm going to try and keep it as quick as possible. But look, I've been 21 years a workaholic, and I've hardly been at home. My lifestyle has been such that I get home way past midnight. So these last few months have been a complete adjustment for me, where I couldn't get out of the house. So there were two ways that I could deal with that. I could either go, oh no, I can't get out of the house, and doom, 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 and gloom, and zoom, or I could say this is the holiday that I never got to have in 21 years. And I kind of went with option number 2. But of course, that meant readjusting myself, as well as not losing out on my productivity, still being productive. But here I needed to hustle. I needed to get into the grind. I needed to find new business opportunities for myself. I needed to put myself, I am in the process of reinventing myself and transitioning my career, which means I have to go back to square one and try just as hard, if not harder, than I did when I was 21 years old and I started working, because I've been known for one thing and now I'm trying to sort of adjust to a completely new identity. So I had to discipline myself. And one of the things that I do when I work with people who are struggling with this work at home model is you have to treat it like you're going to work. You can't put this work at home thing in your head and get into this, pajama lifestyle where you've got your laptop on your bed or your couch, because honestly, psychologically, that is not going to help you. That's just going to put your mind into this chill mode where you're going to find it easier to procrastinate, and the complacency starts setting in. So you've got to treat it like an office, like you're going to an office. So what I did was, I have the privilege of having a separate room that I could set up a desk in and turning it into a little office room. Not everybody else can, but you need to set up your own workstation, your little corner. You need to have conversations with your family. Work time is work time. Similarly, like how they wouldn't waltz into your office and, start nagging at you during your work day. They've got to respect the fact. You've got to have these conversations where when you're working, and you also need to be in that mode where you just don't take breaks willy-nilly when you feel like it. You do time your breaks accordingly, just like you were at work. Dress up for work is something that is hugely psychologically, it helps you be more productive. Putting on the lipstick or putting on a proper, clothes just to go from the bathroom to the workstation might seem silly, but dressing is kind of it's like putting on a costume. When you put on a costume, the character, you kind of embody the character. So you want to be productive. You are in work mode. So remind yourself psychologically and visually that you are in work mode. So just, putting on that outfit and making that effort, timing yourself, giving yourself that task schedule for the day, that helps you stay productive, as well as, of course, you need the support of those that you are living with. So I would say that's the challenge. That's how you kind of manage the challenge of working from home, where you don't consciously tell yourself, I'm working from home. Therefore, I can give myself breaks, or I can excuse myself for this, or because that's when you start spiraling down. See, I would say that although this has been, in one sense, a holiday that I haven't taken for a long time, I've also not worked harder since I've been at home. And, my dogs don't see me coming out of my workstation for until 7 o'clock at night. So it's important. It's important for you, not for anybody else. It's important for you so that when you go back to work, you actually haven't had to adjust a lot. You've still maintained your routine and your discipline. And of course, you need to give yourself a little bit of ease up on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. It takes a little time of adjustment. It takes a little, getting into the flow. So it's okay. It's okay if you struggle. Find ways to sort of get support if you feel like you can't do it on your own. Talk to colleagues, talk to your managers. You can talk to, there's mental health support. When you are struggling, it doesn't mean that you have to have some sort of psychosis or disease to actually talk to somebody who can give you the tools and the guidance to help you through this.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question to Mr. Peter. By using right technological resources and through correct leadership, how can we drive Sri Lankan identity to gain financial benefit from the world market? Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Create a Sri Lankan identity.
Yes.
So, repeat the question. Repeat the question, please.
By using the right technological resources and through correct leadership, how can we drive Sri Lankan identity to gain financial benefit from the world market?
Okay, now firstly, I don't know whether you need to specifically create a Sri Lankan identity because you see it's a global market, and you have to, once you figure out what it is that what market you're fulfilling, then you have to be world class. There's no point saying I am Sri Lankan. It doesn't cut it at all. It's not important unless you're selling something that's branded like CILT. Then you want to do that. Otherwise, this being a Sri Lankan, nobody cares about that. Unless, like I said, it's unique. We have certain unique capabilities. Unique branding like Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon tea. Garments, whatever, unless it has some value, why would you want to do that? You would actually be losing market share because we are not held out, known for anything, uniquely, Sri Lankan, apart from those products that I spoke of. So we are not known like India one time was known for unique skills in computing. So you don't want to do that. You really want to say, I'm a world-class player. So companies have gone global, not by saying we are Sri Lankan, quite the opposite. They say, no, we are not Sri Lankan, we are global. So I don't think it's a very smart strategy to look at, to brand yourself as Sri Lankan. It's not going to get you anywhere in the global market. That's my take, unless the other speakers have a different take on it. So I'll keep my answer short because then keep it for 1 minute, then we can have more questions in.
All right, thank you. So we have another question to Charitha, Mr. Charitha. The question is, will the Lucas grasshopper threat spread? If so, what will be the impact on our agricultural chain? And how do we face the increasing natural threats for a country like Sri Lanka? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, thanks. So look, I think I had a backup slide on this. Okay. While I'm talking, I'll try to see if I can find, because there's a perfect illustration of this that I use in other presentations. So while I'm doing that, there are the current infestation so far. What we are hearing from our colleagues and experts is that it's not anything to the scale of the armyworm, fall armyworm that hit, I believe, about almost 1.5 years ago. That was potentially biblical level, but then too, the Department of Agriculture particularly has been upping its game in terms of communication and outreach, and was able to do a very good job of getting the message out and getting the information out for people to know what to do and who to contact and how to get help for that. So the current infestation, I believe it's not going to be catastrophic. Any of them we have to be careful about. One of the things is I am a globalist. I am not anti-globalization, but one of the dangers with open, unregulated borders is that these kinds of pests can travel easily on something else. Let me just share a slide. How do I get this onto your screen? Can you guys see the screen? So before the call, Oshad was asking me about the Bovi Mituru service or Ulava Tolan in Tamil. Very low tech, like I said, very low tech service. Registration, you have to say where you live, what you're growing, and depending on the crop, a little few, one or two more other levels of detail. With paddy, it's more complicated. It's 3x3x3 combinations. But what happens then is the farmer thereafter only needs to be able to press the green button to answer a call on any kind of phone and listen to the selected language that he or she had already selected to get a 1 to 1.5 minute call on only the most important information they need to know that week. So they might get 3 or 4 calls a day if it's one crop. This is a yaya. So paddy, obviously, you all know is these are all adjoining each other. This field, this liadda in the yaya belongs to a farmer who was subscribed to Govimituru in 2017-18. And then we had the BPH, which is brown plant hopper, that suddenly popped up in Kurunegala. And this guy is in Hambantota, by the way. But this popped up in Kurunegala, and a lot of the farmers, as well as by that time I mentioned AIs, agriculture instructors, they now call us direct. We're dialogue, right? We're not the Department of Agriculture. But they know that we are involved in supporting the department. They called us and said, hey, you need to get this message out. First to Kurunegala, then to the rest of the country in case it spreads. And so we recorded these very short messages in the appropriate languages and fired them off to the farmers. This guy got the message, knew what to do to prevent brown plant hopper infesting his field. I don't know why he didn't tell his neighbor. Maybe they've got something kind of thing going on. But he didn't tell his neighbor, and the brown plant hopper hit this liadda. Okay? So this is the power of information. Timely information, the most targeted information. It can be the difference between starving for the next 6 months or not for these farmers. So no, the locust will not, I don't want to have to eat my words, but the locust at the moment does not look like it will be as big a danger as fall armyworm or the previous locust attack was. But we have to be wary of these things. We have to be very alert. We have to have quicker dissemination of information, and we have to, and we're finding it. I mean, look, when it's your livelihood, you're going to listen. Farmers never took much notice of their phones or carried them with them because they were just entertainment devices. Now it's got something that can add value and be the difference between starving or having some money to put into his or her children's education and all these things. So they're very, very motivated to follow that information. And we have a good information seeking culture in our country. So there's hope is what I'll stop with.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Charitha. And that's it for the questions. Over to you, Oshad.
Yeah, thank you, Ashni. I think it's time for us to conclude. Yeah, so there are a few more unanswered questions actually. So we'll try to talk with the speakers and get back to you after the event through email or not, because we are running a bit tight on time. We will be concluding the Q&A session for now. So Anjana, I hope you're online. So over to you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Oshad. Good evening to all. On behalf of CILT YPF, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to 3 main keynote speakers of YPF Inspire V6. Ms. Shanuki De Alwis, Brand Purpose Consultant, TEDx Speaker, Skill Coach. Mr. Charitha Ratwattee, Head Group Sustainability at Dialog PLC and Managing Director of Rural Returns Limited. Mr. Peter De Almeida, the founder, enabler, and famous actor and famous director. With spending your valuable time for us, sharing valuable knowledge and facts in different areas is relevant to post-pandemic situation. Thank you very much for being with us. Then I would like to thank all registered participants for joining with YPF Inspire V6. Furthermore, I would like to thank all CILT Council members who gave tremendous support for organizing the YPF Inspire as a virtual event. Last but not least, I take opportunity to thank my YPF committee members who gave a lot of support for organizing this event. So thank you very much for joining with us. Rashad, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Anjana, and thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in through Zoom and live and from Facebook as well. And also, thank you again for the speakers. We hope that you got something out of it and that you put all these things that you learn into practice in the future as well. On behalf of YPF Sri Lanka, thank you and good night.